is I Do Damage, and welcome back to the channel. In this Wolcen Lords of Mayhem video, I want to share a pet build. I finally found a pet build that I'm comfortable playing and sharing with you guys. This is also going to be a melee hybrid build. The first thing you need to know about this build is you're going to have a really hard time dying. That's why this is a great build for starters, maybe more of an endgame build since you do have to duplicate 3 copies of your Liver Mortis skill. With that said, let's go ahead and start. All the timestamps will be down in the description. The first thing I want to talk about is the bread and butter to Wolcen, and that is their passive skill tree. The first pretty much half of the passive skill tree is going to be focused on ailments, and I posted a whole ailment guide video. There'll be a card up top for you. Make sure you check that out. It's all about ailments in Wolcen, and that's pretty much what all these purple nodes are here. I'll have the Wolcen universe link down below so you can use that and copy it as well. And then I also always incorporate this into every single build on Wolcen, and that is the ability to dodge through enemies. I just think it's game changer for sure. And usually I'll come up here and grab a stamina point. Not sure why I didn't in this copy of this build, but yeah, usually I would grab that. And then we would start to go up here. So let me just tell you the secret about this build. And it's focused on your 3 Liver Mortises, as I said. Each of them can get a rune that they take 20 to 30% of your damage that you would take is instead inflicted to the pets. So what you want to do is you want to give your pets as much health as possible. And I mean, you're never going to die. It's quite silly. I won't be surprised if it gets nerfed in the future. But those are going to be in your Plaguebringer area of the passive skill tree. So to get there, I come up here for maximum health, rage cost, willpower reduction, and then willpower on hit, and then you'll come down here for max willpower and rage. That one's almost as important to me in every build as being able to roll through enemies. Like, that's always up there on my builds. And then we just come over here, and this is literally just to get down to Plaguebringer. You're going to pick up all the nodes that buff your summons, and as far as I know, these damage to summons don't actually work right now. That's the word on the street. I haven't actually tested it personally, but that's what I've heard, and I do believe it. So, and then down here, what you'll see the summons health, summon regen, and then your summons receive less damage, but you lose health. So basically, your pets take some of the damage for you. Let's see, I'll get you the exact percentage here. So I guess it doesn't actually say, but I think that this node is actually, the portion of your damage is 20 to 30% in that ballpark. And if you have all 3, that's multiplied. So on the low end, 60%, on the top end, 90% less damage that your pets take for you. And then on top of that, your pets now take 25% less damage. So you can see the synergy there. And then I grab all the nodes. The summons take another 20% less damage. The summons take another 20% less damage. And then your health regen, and then you'll top it out with summons health. And then the last area I would go is down to this node. And this is because all resistance is going to help out just with keeping you alive even more. So what you do here is you get both these nodes. This one is your chest piece. All resistance scores on the chest piece is doubled. And then if you grab this node, it also affects your helmet. So you can see on my guy, I have really high resistance on both those items. This one I do need to upgrade a little bit, and it could be definitely higher. And then this one's got 654 all resist, and then that's doubled. So you can see your all resistance is pretty insanely high. I guess I'm sitting at, I'm a little bit low, but I would aim for higher than that. But, you know, my build, I'm still getting started with gearing and all this. So the last thing I want to comment on the passive skill tree is where I would go next. And the next area I would go would be over here in Praetorian. So whenever you pick up a health globe, you get 40% all resist added for you and your allies whenever you pick up a health globe. So that, you can see why that's good. And then the very last one, or the next one, I guess not the last one, the next one I would go for is these tenants. These give you damage decreased per tenant point. So it's a pretty interesting node. Those are the 2 I would go. So after that, after those 2 nodes, I'll only have 2 more points left to spend. You'd pretty much put them anywhere you want. I mean, maybe attack damage or something to buff up your skill that you do use in this build. And you guessed it, it's Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge is the skill that I use in this build. I know that you guys are like, no, dude, that skill's so overpowered, you can't use it or whatever. But guess what, guys? I think it's fun to use. I'm going to use it, and it's strong. I loved it in the beta, and I love it in the game now. I'm going to keep using it. I'm going to fit it into all my builds. So I think this build's pretty cool since it is technically a pet summoner build with a twist. And pretty much I've made it fit my playstyle. There's another build variant where it's all pets, and I'll probably end up doing a video on that as well. But I found that to be less interactive and more boring, as I could just AFK everything. I mean, I literally didn't have to touch my keyboard. Just move to a new spot and AFK. Like, it's, to me, insanely boring. I'm sure people would like that build. I don't know. I thought it was boring. But anyway, so now that you know that I do use Bleeding Edge, thanks for continuing to watch. Let's talk skills and modifiers. So obviously you're going to want to copy your Liver Mortis skills 3 times. So the way that you duplicate a skill is you come over here to Dimitra, the Archivist. Hopefully I said that right. But you just come over here and you can just find a skill, and it costs 1,000 primordial affinity to duplicate it. That's all it is. And then you come over here and duplicate it again if you want. You'll have to level it up to be able to unlock the duplication. I can't remember the exact level to unlock that second dupe, but you're going to do that 3 times. So you'll have 3 Liver Mortises. You can see right here on my bar. There's all 3 of them. And you can put the exact same runes in all 3. So it's pretty sweet. But this is the big boy node right here. A portion of the damage received by you is transmitted to the summon. I've already talked about it in the video. But this stacks up 3 times. Like, I won't be surprised if this gets nerfed in the future. I mean, you really almost can't die when you're running this. It's crazy. And then on top of that, you have block chance, block efficiency, and your all resist. It really gets out of hand. So the other nodes that we'll take for all 3 of them is health for your summon, damage for your summon. That's really useless. I mean, your pets aren't going to do really any of them. And then I went to a mage for the protective shield. Honestly, no specific reason for that other than I wanted to. I'm sure you could do like the melee warrior or whatever you want, really. They're literally just here for this node. And then I also went damage and health. I would say the 2 health nodes and this node are pretty much required. The other ones, do whatever you want with. And like I said, that's for all 3 of them. So you can see them down here on my bar. And then you can see the numbers, the duplicated version. That's, I think, pretty straightforward. It's indicated up here as well in these tabs. And then the next skill we use is Anomaly, and you'll see why in a minute. Pretty much what this skill does is it just sucks it in so that you can hit everything with your Bleeding Edge. So I'll show gameplay as well, but the skill modifiers on Anomaly is the area of effect. You definitely want to be able to grip more enemies in. And then average damage, it's not going to be your main source of damage. Bleeding Edge will be. And then enemies are damaged when they're pulled by the vortex. Duration of the vortex, which then synergizes with it pulls multiple times. So each time it pulls, it does more damage. Inflicts the ailments, all that stuff. So the last one down here, the skill allows 2 vortex, so you can get more control over the battlefield. And you've probably seen it, but here it is. You can actually like literally cast it twice. Like it's pretty strong. And the cooldown's not insanely long on that. The next skill is Mark of Impurity, and ideally you would get the trial belt, but it's insanely rare. I don't have one, and I've just came to terms that I probably won't ever have one, which that's fine by me. But so I use Mark of Impurity since I don't have the belt, which the belt would actually, whenever you're hit, apply this skill, and then it'd free up a skill slot on your barks. Anyway, the skill modifiers I use are the Curse stacks, just to get the passive damage buff from ailment stacks that we talked about in the ailment video, and then the enemies killed while under the effect explode and deal damage based on their max health in an area around them. And this is the other big boy node. Mark of Impurity spreads to surrounding enemies on death of the target. And then ailment damage on marked enemies is increased. Not a huge thing, but these 2, I just want to comment on these 2. These really go together. So basically the way you're going to want to do it is you're going to want to put your mark up on a really weak target that you know is going to die probably first. Pretty much one-shot it, and then it just spreads to everything around it, and it's a chain reaction, because when those bigger mobs start to die, their health is just dealing damage, and it just is a chain reaction. It's insane, and it looks sweet. Last but not least, I know everyone's favorite skill. I don't even know if I really need to explain it, but it is Bleeding Edge, and these are the nodes for it. Ailment damage, increase ailment chance score, area of effect, damage per ailment stack, of course, right? The axe now follows you as you move, and increases crit chance. And I know someone's probably going to be like, dude, I read on the Discord that Bleeding Edge now has a cooldown and it's totally nerfed. Not true. There's a skill. This actually now does have a cooldown for 8.5 seconds, which was desperately needed in my opinion. This thing was so OP, and I'm glad they put a cooldown on that node. The skill itself doesn't have a cooldown though. So that's pretty much it for skills. Let's talk about stats and items and what you want to look for when you're out killing stuff. So the stats that you want for this build, you desperately, on your chest and helmet, you want the highest all resistance possible so that we can get the best benefit from those two nodes, if you can remember from the passive skill tree. Also, we're going to gem for block efficiency and block chance on defense. Pretty much on all your defensive slots, you're going to want either defensive 1 or 2 for that block chance and block efficiency. You want to aim for about 60 to 70% block chance. The higher the better, man, honestly. And same with all resistance, there's really no cap. The higher the better. So the stats I would aim for this build, and first of all, your character sheet is all toughness. I mean, that's it. You just want to be able to stay alive with this build, which you won't have an issue with. And also, if you go all the way into one stat, you actually get more of a damage bonus from that. So there's that as well. On gear, there's a little bit of a balancing game that you kind of want to play here. And let me just tell you kind of my dream items, and I'll add in like an and/or affix, and you kind of want a mixture of both. We'll talk about stat thresholds and stuff next, but my dream stat would be an item that has damage and/or material damage, health, all resistance, crit damage and/or crit chance, ailment chance, and then block chance and/or block efficiency. The reason I'm saying and/or is because you do really want a nice blend of all of those. So your damage or material damage, really, it's whatever one's the highest, or even if you can get one of those on an item. But when it comes down to crit damage and crit chance, for your crit chance, I would aim for at least 50%. Probably on the low end. You can see my Bleeding Edge only has 40%, and that's pretty low, but I still do crit quite often. So I would aim for that. I would try to, once you've gotten around 45, maybe 50% or even higher, of course, the more the better, you want crit damage, because what crit damage does is it raises the ceiling of your crits. Your crits can only crit so high. From my understanding, there's a ceiling, and getting critical damage raises that critical damage ceiling, so you can crit for higher and higher numbers. So you can see why crit damage is insanely overpowered. But if you're not critting, you're not getting crit damage. So you do want to balance that. And then the other stat that I said and/or you want is the block chance and block efficiency. Mine is incredibly low. Again, my gear is a bit out of whack, but you do want a high block chance. The more the better on this. But you also want the block efficiency, because as you can read right here, the block efficiency is the percentage of damage that you negate when you block. So if you have 0% block efficiency, when you actually block an attack, it's not going to do anything, according to what the game tells you. So with that in mind, you want as much block chances and as much block efficiency as possible. Like I said, I'd probably aim for like 60% block chance and like maybe 40 efficiency on the very low end. The more the better. You also want to try to sneak in on a few of these items. You want to try to get the +% transfer time decrease between willpower and rage. And pretty much what that does is when you spend a resource and your bar goes to kind of a black darked out color, that's because it's still transferring. And you may see it where your entire resource is all the way blacked out and you can't use it. And it's transferring so slow back to that other resource. And that's because you don't have enough transfer time. And so essentially you're locked out and you can't use any skills. You can't even use potions when it's blacked out. for that segment. So you want to get that transfer time so you can really bounce back and forth. And you'll see in the gameplay, we don't really have an issue with that. So I actually, when it comes to transfer time, I only have plus 40% transfer time. And a little more wouldn't hurt since you're going to be using a catalyst, which actually has negative. So you're going to need to counteract that. You can also gem it on support gems using these gems here. If you roll a support 3 gem, you can get it there. And on the catalyst, if you get really lucky, you can get 3 support 3 rolls. That's insanely rare, but it can happen, and that's 75% transfer time right there. I mean, so we talked about the skills. Obviously, for your weapons, in order to cast spells and attacks, you're going to have a dagger, which is required for Mark of Impurity. It can only be used with daggers, bows, and pistols. For this build, I go dagger since we are using Bleeding Edge. So dagger and catalyst is your choice for weapons. And you can see this unique. I have an O'Malley's belt on, and this is just for Magic Find, honestly, until I can find that trial belt. So this is not required by any means. You could actually get more damage and actually be stronger than I am if you go off the stat priority that I kind of talked about. So now that you know everything there is to know about the build, the passive skill tree, the nodes, and the stats, let's go ahead and show off a little bit of gameplay here so you can really see this in action. We'll just do a 157 since that's the highest I have unlocked right now, since I'll be honest, I kind of got bored of pushing after a while. But what I want to do is I just want to do some gameplay with commentary for just a short time to kind of explain the rotation, and then I'll just let the video play out from there. So basically you want big groups. You just pop Anomaly, pop a potion, put up your mark, and start spinning. And that is your entire build. You can keep using your rage potions. There's one other little trick I kind of want to show you here. So you can see how my rage bar is all the way black. When this happens, you just want to use all your spells that you possibly can and your left click ability until you're back up to positive. And that is pretty much the entirety of the gameplay. You want to make sure you have your pets out at all times. And one last thing I want to note before I shut up and just let the gameplay go. I want to point out that your pets, you do have 3 of them. They actually share a cooldown, as you can see. So what I like to do is when I'm trying to dump my willpower, I just kind of rotate between the 3 of them just to get up the damage absorption shields, which is not really required at all. But anyway, I'll go ahead and let the video play out, and you'll be able to see that I pretty much just walk through. Go ahead and enjoy some gameplay for a minute or two, and as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, don't forget to like and subscribe. I post new videos every Monday and Friday, and sometimes some bonus videos just for you. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Legendary.